Today we're going to be taking a look at the Lenovo IdeaPad 81VS, which, as far as I can find, is one of the cheapest laptops to run a full-on version of Windows 10. At the time of this recording, you can pick up the 81VS for around $230 depending on where you buy it. But I got it at Best Buy during a Black Friday sale for just $120, which even for a low-spec machine is a pretty good deal. First, let's talk about what comes in the box. You'll obviously get your Lenovo IdeaPad 81VS, some documentation regarding warranty and Windows 10 S mode, and then you'll get a barrel-style power brick. And I'll be honest, I think I like this power brick more than most. It just looks and feels good in your hand. Next, let's talk about the I/O and build quality. On the one side of the laptop, we have the headphone microphone combo jack. Nothing on the back, but on the other side of the laptop, you have a barrel jack for your charger, two USB-A 2.0 ports, a full-size HDMI port, a micro SD card slot, a reset switch, and a power indicator. Now, for a thin and light, that's actually a pretty robust I/O, especially on such an inexpensive machine. As far as build quality goes, we don't get the one finger open with the clamshell, and the screen isn't the sturdiest piece of equipment on the planet, but it's pretty good for its class, and it's a touchscreen. And then you'll also notice that we have a moderate amount of deck flex here. It's not like an insane amount, really no more than most laptops under $800, but it is enough to be noticeable. The trackpad also has give kind of in random spots. There's like a lot of give down in the bottom left-hand corner of the trackpad and then absolutely none at the top of the trackpad. But the tracking itself is actually pretty darn nice. So no major complaints about the trackpad. It's pretty good, especially for its price tag. Since this is a lower end machine, I wanted to try a cold boot to see how long things took to load up after being off completely. And that experience wasn't very good. It took about 20 seconds to get to the welcome screen, and even after being fully booted up for a while, it took about another 15 seconds to load Edge completely. YouTube was also extremely slow. Once everything was cached, however, things actually ran pretty smoothly. Definitely a lot smoother than when first booting up. As far as the tech specs go, the 81VS comes with an AMD A6 9220E, which is a dual-core APU, 4 GB of DDR4 laptop RAM, and 64 GB of eMMC flash storage. However, Windows 10 is a pretty big operating system, and so when all is said and done, you only have about 27 gigs left of storage, which doesn't leave a lot of room for anything. The laptop ships in Windows S mode, which seems to be pretty common on the lower end Windows machines, and I don't know if it's something they're trying to expand to all of their machines, and maybe it has something to do with tidying up the experience, but I don't personally like it. And so I went ahead and switched out of S mode, which is a permanent switch. You can't switch back into S mode out of S mode. But I switched out of S mode for some of the features that you just can't get with S mode. Features like downloading and running Geekbench. Now, I know synthetic benchmarks aren't the tell-all as far as processor performance goes, but I do really like to see how processors stack up to other processors on the market to get an idea of what kind of performance I'm achieving with the laptop. For single-core performance, the A6 9220E scored a measly 358, which happens to be the same score as the dual-core i5 430M, which you think, i5, that's pretty cool. But the i5 is a dual-core processor still from nearly 11 years ago. And for multi-core performance, the A6 scored a solid 541, which happens to be 1 point behind the Intel Pentium E5200, another dual-core CPU, but this time from just over 12 years ago. Not a lot of power here, which I guess anyone could have guessed from the tiny price tag. At this point in the video, I'd like to interject with some ASMR and the request to like this video and please subscribe. As a small growing channel, your views, your likes, and your subs mean a lot to me, and I thank you in advance for your contribution. Okay, so let's talk about use cases. Is this a laptop that you should buy? Honestly, I'm actually kind of concerned about this laptop because I have in my mind that a large portion of people that are going to be buying this laptop are like seniors that don't know anything about computers, right? Generally speaking, Lenovo makes some pretty spectacular machines, right? The ThinkCenter, the ThinkPad, right? These are all just great machines that are like industry standard as far as workstations go. And I have this fear, right, that grandma's going to be like walking into Best Buy somewhere to like get a PC, and she sees this and she's like, oh, it's a good brand and it's a great price. And then she's going to buy it, right? Now, if grandma knows how to find solitaire on Windows 10 and she's okay with the fact that Facebook takes like 5 minutes to do anything with, then I think she's made the right decision. But if she's buying this laptop as a Christmas present or as a birthday present for little Johnny so he can play his games, I think we've missed the mark and she's definitely buying the wrong PC. And so that gives me a little bit of concern. But again, if she's okay with solitaire and Facebook, I think it's a pretty solid option. Another use case that I think you could have with this laptop is as a decoy laptop. All right, so let me see if this sounds familiar to anyone. You have a nice laptop, but you also have a 5-year-old, right? And you don't want that 5-year-old and the laptop in the same space at the same time. So what do, right? You can either just like lock your 5-year-old out of the room at all times and just avoid your 5-year-old like the plague anytime you're using your laptop, and then make sure your laptop is in some sort of like fingerprint encoded, like, 27 digit pin protected vault, right? So your 5-year-old doesn't get to it. Or you buy a decoy laptop. You buy a low-end, really cheap laptop that you just kind of like give to your 5-year-old, and then your 5-year-old is busy using that all the time instead of wanting to use your laptop. Now, it's cheap. It has eMMC storage, which means that it's going to be best if the 5-year-old never turns it off, and the 5-year-old will never turn it off. And it doesn't have a lot of storage, so your 5-year-old's never going to like download any viruses that are going to crash it. But even if they do, right, it was a $230 laptop, and like whatever, not that $230 is just like you just throw it around, but it is much cheaper than maybe your $1,500 laptop or your $2,500 laptop, right? And if this cheap laptop breaks, right, it's okay, because you kind of bought it as a disposable decoy laptop. So that's another use case that I think could really work out for this laptop. Could you use it for school, right? Like as a college student or as a high school student? I think you'd be remiss to think that you are going to get any kind of good performance on like Zoom. I think Zoom is going to crash regularly, just about every chance it gets. And the laggy experience doesn't really make for an efficient homework experience and productivity session. So I wouldn't use it as a student unless I ran it through some insane debloating scripts, right? Windows 10 just happens to ship with a bunch of what we call bloatware, right? Just some useless software on there that nobody uses, and it just slows down your machine. And there are scripts that you can run. There are things you can run in your computer to get rid of all of that to make it run faster, right? Because honestly, with 4 gigs, you're only ending up using about 2 gigs of that RAM, and then you only have like 30 gigs of storage, right? That's not a lot for a college student who needs to be writing papers, who needs to be doing research on the internet, who maybe is binge watching, The Office until it completely goes off Netflix or something like that, right? In another browser. Like, that's not going to work out, right? And so you'd have to debloat this thing majorly to do it. And I just think you're going to get a better experience buying a different laptop. So I wouldn't get this, right? You can get laptops that are twice as much, but that are twice as good and will last twice as long. So you really don't end up getting much value from saving the money here because you can get a better laptop somewhere else. So again, use cases, grandma in solitaire, great for that. Great as a decoy laptop or as a family laptop that you don't care if it gets ruined and you're not loading up games and playing, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, right? You're not playing that on there. But I wouldn't use it. I wouldn't assume you're going to get any major work done on there, and I wouldn't use it for schooling. I just don't think it's going to be a great experience there. Other than that, I think it's a fine laptop for its price tag. Again, it's pretty darn cheap, but I wouldn't use it for other than those things. So that's a wrap. I appreciate you watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like, thumbs up, leave a comment if you have a question here, or if you have a comment on how I ran this review. Subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content, because I will definitely be having several more laptop reviews in the very near future. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you later.